welcome to this review of the IBM Screen Reader Keypad, also known as the SKC. This is on loan to me from a viewer from the Netherlands. Thanks again, mate. I'll return it to you during the next Dutch meetup. Normally I don't borrow stuff, but occasionally I make an exception, especially if it's so easy to handle back and forth. This is the late blue badge version by Lexmark. There was also an earlier grey badge version by IBM themselves, but both share the same part number, 1393387. This one was manufactured on the 22nd of June 1994 in the USA, which makes it a very late production, as the model was discontinued only a year later. As you can see, it says it's a Model M type keyboard, but in reality, and despite being relatively young, it's a curious mix of Model M and Model F type features. More on that later. First, a little bit of background. The SKC was intended for use with a screen reader, which is a type of technology that's used to assist people who are visually impaired, illiterate, or who have a learning disability, and it does this by essentially just reading out what's on the screen. Although the term is now used for all technology of this type, it's actually a genericized trademark. A screen reader was simply the name of the first screen reader, and everybody just rolled with it afterwards. Considering the unparalleled history of computing innovation, it's perhaps no surprise that the first screen reader was invented by IBM, but what might be surprising to learn is that it wasn't envisioned as a marketable commercial product at first. The inventor of the screen reader was a man called Jim Thatcher, who was one of the very first people to receive a PhD in computer science, as it happens. He developed the screen reader to help his teacher, Dr. Jesse Wright, who was blind, work with computers by playing around with SAID, that's S-A-I-D, a $10,000 talking terminal developed by Al Overby in 1978, which was based on the IBM 3270 terminal, and it was used as an intra-company only tool to help IBM staff who had impaired vision. It wasn't even trademarked at first, as they didn't figure there was a huge demand for it, but eventually released as a commercial product. And a good thing too, as screen readers were quite a game changer for a lot of people. Thatcher would subsequently spend decades working on and consulting for the accessibility industry, and he's won numerous awards during the course of his career. This keypad, or rather the original grey badge version, was paired with the 1988 release of the PS2 Screen Reader 1.0 software. This one is presumably for the latest Screen Reader /2 version, released in 1992, which used the same keypad layout. The two software versions are sometimes confused, but they are different. The keypads both use the detachable PS2 SDL cable though, just like a Model M, but unlike a Model M, it doesn't work over a PS2 keyboard port. You need to use either a mouse port for it or a special adapter port, and it doesn't operate without its parent software. I must admit I'm not sure what the letter keys are for. I'm guessing these are for command functions within the software, possibly context-sensitive ones, hence their generic label. The famously dramatic sounding help and stop keys, which are probably the most well-known features of the board, would activate the help function and pause the audio, respectively. For those who are wondering, this is far from the only numpad/keypad IBM ever released, but it is among the more famous ones. Though marked as a Model M-type keypad and fitted with an obviously M-type case, which is very distinctive, it has many F-like features, which is a holdover from the keypad they based it on, which is the F24 or 25. This was the accompanying numpad that belonged to the F104, which is basically a TKL version of a battleship. The F104 is widely known by its moniker, the Unsaver, because of the irony of making a space-saving version of something as colossal as a battleship, and the resulting Unsaver is still a massive piece of hardware. Anyway, the F24 or 25 was a Model F-type keyboard, and many of its construction features carried over to the SKC, including vestigial holes for another row of keys, which the F24 or 25 did have, but the SKC doesn't. The SKC is fundamentally an M-type keyboard with a membrane, which you can see through these little holes here, M-type flippers and M-type case, but like a Model F, it uses a steel barrel plate with loose barrels in it rather than the single-piece plastic barrel plate of the M. It has an F-type hook-in steel backplate rather than the riveted one of the M, and assembly foam like an F rather than the protective rubber mat found on M keyboards. As a result, the keyboard is a sort of hybrid between the two models, though in terms of key feel it is almost purely M in character. The sound is a bit more in the middle though. Listen to this. Of course, the case is a big factor in how the keyboard sounds as well. It was designed to be the same depth and height as a Model M keyboard, rather than only as big as it needs to be to house the keys that are on it, and combined with the significant bezels that were the norm at the time, it is actually fairly huge at 15.3 by 19 centimeters. Or in imperial units, 12.3 cups. Not sure what kind of cups, but you guys seem to know those sorts of things. Anyway, if I compare it to the EPO Maker Cypher 21 I unboxed recently, you can see just how vast this thing actually is. Of course, being built like a Model F, the weight is also incredible, 780 grams, or in imperial units, 45.6 cups, which for a numpad, I think you'll agree, is quite ridiculous. That's the weight of a small keyboard. The Cypher 21 I just showed is just under 300 grams, and that's a calculator in addition to a numpad too. This must be one of the heaviest numpads ever devised. I should specify that the size, profile-wise, matches that of the SSK rather than the full-size Model M, which is nice because that's obviously much more appropriate, as the 101 key model already has a numpad. For anyone who doesn't know, the SSK is just a little bit shallower than a full-size Model M. It's a shame it doesn't work like a normal PS2 keyboard, as those are very easy to make compatible with modern PCs, and despite being 30 years old now, or in imperial units 78.9 cups, I'm sure it would still work flawlessly. Nevertheless, it's still a really cool collector's piece. It's just such a quirky slab of IBM history from their heyday, which is quite an interesting time. Always fun to review IBM keyboards, even though I've done quite a lot of them by now. In any case, that's it for this review. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And following is a demonstration of me making some noise on this keyboard.